just hanging out with family, friends as much as I can. I cut my hours down to like 25 hours a week.
Really?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm halfway retired. Like,
Pretty dope. No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, the online stuff is nice, man. I would like to have a studio or something like go to, like that'd be great. But at the same time, like online training's low overhead and I get to meet people. It kind of scratches the travel itch, you know? I mean, you get that, like talking to these people from different countries and stuff. It's great.
Yeah. One thing I think like the gym thing's really important for me, at least. Like, I think it gives me like a certain degree of like creative a workspace for that, but also like, honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest, like credibility, like I don't want to be some dude who's just like, sitting in a room and not like,
You're just sitting in a room. What else, man? What else you got?
I don't mean it like that, but I mean, like, I want to be someone who is doing it, like, practicing what they preach.
For sure.
And I'm so tired of online clients. Like, I don't take them anymore. Like, if someone like people will, offer to pay a large sum of money, I just can't do it. I can't do it. I'm done. After 2020 and doing like what you did, you said you had like 30 something online clients. I was in the same thing. And I was just like, no more, because now every time, unless it's not like this, but if someone was like, hey, let's get on a Zoom call, like there's a part of me that has like this response, like this, like, I don't know, like this primitive, like very like visceral response. And I just feel like I want to like throw up. And so I just
throw up. I get on these Zoom calls and I just want to puke. I think a lot of people have that probably now in general, just from Zoom meetings though. Yeah. Like, it's not just you, probably like everyone across the workforce is like that.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why like people also are kind of not doing the online stuff as much anymore. I think people are tired of it, and I totally understand that.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm with you. Like, I think that's, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely here to stay, but it was like the Bitcoin bubble type stuff, or like it took off there for a while. I think it's kind of taken a rest, but it's going to come back like full swing, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, like when I really think of it, and like it's definitely changed training completely. Like every trainer now has like accepting online clients in their bios. Every trainer. It doesn't matter if you have 50 followers or whatever. It says like accepting online clients to some degree. That I would say you're like your typical like NASM ACE certification. People want online clients, but I think heck, who is it? NASM, like they just released a social media certification, or like
what?
Continuing education thing.
What does that entail?
I don't know. Just the photo was just some like blonde, like in a sports bra, like just sitting on a box with a ring light. And I was like, oh my God, like here we go.
NASM social media certification?
Yeah. Or it might be like a Con Ed, I mean.
Social media fitness influencer.
Yes.
Wow.
Even worse.
Oh, this is gross.
Right. So, I mean, think of that. Think of,
holy shit.
I mean, heck, like my Instagram account, I grow maybe, think if you get 1,000 followers a month, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. 500 followers a month. Like, and then by 2025, you can like continued with that.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to be pretty big relatively.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also think too, the thing I've liked about online training has been, because I worked like 8 years in big box gyms, which was just killer. I hated that. Like it was a passion, but mainly because people would come in 1, 2, 3 times if I was lucky a week. But like I'd see them for that hour and it was like, I don't see you ever again. Like after that, like
that is
I don't
frustrating.
you don't know what they're doing, what they're going out, they're doing this stuff. Like I felt like I was just always preaching, like you want these goals, but you don't do the work outside of the gym for this. Whereas online training, using like Trainer Eyes and all that, I feel like I have more influence. Like I'm there, people can message me, like I'm more of a consultant in that aspect. And 2, I can also attract someone who wants that service Whereas like in a big box gym, people just want to like come in and it's like kick my ass for an hour and see you later. I'm going to go have beers with the the rest of the people like after work, or you know what I mean. So
it's different. Yeah, no, it's different at this gym here, because honestly, like a lot of what we do requires so much mental energy. Like we have people in here that have crazy pain. We have people in here that have no pain at all. So honestly, when someone comes in here and they just want to do that, it's honestly refreshing to me. I think I have such a weird circumstance at this gym. Like it's so different than the average trainer's experience. Like, because people come in mostly seeing me through social media. Some people see me on Google, but like people have an expectation of what they're going to get when they come in here. Like they want the PRI, the breathing, all that stuff. And I can definitely give that to them. But it's so nice sometimes when you just have someone that comes in and all they want to do is just lift. It's so refreshing.
I mean,
oh my God.
I can tell you, I maybe do my breathing stuff like twice on my own anymore, or like twice a week if I feel a little funky, but most of my warm-ups, they like kind of cover it. But I'm just like pushing like strength and all that, like in my own programming. And most of my, within the first month of all my clients, like I've already kind of weaned them off. And it's like, okay, hey, fitness. And that's, but like, that's the thing where this stuff really connects to when you look at PRI or gait, respiratory, whatever the heck you want to call it. Like it can push that direction super quick. And you can have someone from a low level breathing drill that sort of gets them out of their pain or their aches and pains. And then it's like, all right, load it up. Like, come on, let's go. And then you're pushing periodization. I think proper periodization, if anything, this has taught me how to program a lot more effectively. And because of just like in general, it like the same principles are like applying to my like programming. And so with like my programming is keeping people healthy in the long term. Because now like I have clients I've had for over like a year and a half now. And it's like, oh man, like luckily they're not like, knock on wood, nothing's like happening to them, but like my programming is showing that. And also like, I guess just getting to know people too. Like you're probably pushing yourself too much like this month, or I don't know.
What kind of people are you working with? Are they mostly like people who want to get fit, or are they people that are in pain and want to get fit? That. So
yeah, definitely. It usually starts out in pain, or I definitely get, because I always talk about this stuff in like terms of posture and using that, like people will be like, I have this crazy rib flare, like my shoulder's all the way up here. And they're like, I'm still in the gym, but like this looks stupid. Like, help me. And I'm like, all right, like, so using that, you know, PRI says they don't treat posture, but
it's good for that.
You can. Like, why not if you can? So, but and then again, a lot of the loading principles and just alternating unilateral stuff, it just goes hand in hand, and it just expedites it.
Is that mostly like you just keep it pretty bare bones then, is what it sounds like? It sounds like, honestly, like since I've talked to you last, it sounds like you've moved away from some of the heavier programming with that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
I think I know what to program, I guess, for it. Like probably within the first, I'll usually do like at least a minimum 1 month of like respiratory alternating lifting. And if they're like out of pain by that, I'm like, okay, hey, it's month 2, like let's put in like 20% bilateral work, 30%, and then whatever, like real life is hitting you, oh, like don't worry, we'll make this more efficient. You can't spend 3 hours in the gym doing unilateral and alternating work. Like that's fine, go hit a leg press. Like but again, it's just the way I've been programming has been, even if they do like say a heavier bilateral thing, like, you know, I've been programming back squats, like, because people want to get strong. It's like, all right, go for it. So I give them back, and they want to do it, give them back squat. But then my accessories are like pulling them back toward rotational activities. And then at the end, it's like, hey, if you really want to, like, here's a hook line breathing. But that sort of I don't know what the word is, like decompresses them, if you want to say that.
Yeah. I was
feel
going
like
to say
that's
something else.
yeah, I was gonna say I was going that way, but
Yeah.
it decompresses them because it gets that rotation back, and that's helped a lot. But I don't know. What about you, man? Like, what are you programming?
What am I programming? I think I have a lot of people with a lot of different goals right now. Um, Most people, I don't do online client stuff anymore. If I do,
Right.
it's like once in a blue moon. It's someone that is like, okay, it might be like a power lifter who needs to feel better or whatever, or like, an athlete or something like that. But for me to take an online client, it really requires me to
I'm gonna make
have
the title of this podcast: Conor Harris does not take online clients.
I can't stand it, man. Oh my God. Makes me want to like pull my eyeballs out. But anyway, so in the gym, I have way more diversity of clients. So we've got like people that want to get generally fit, like the people we talked about earlier. But a lot of people are coming with like something, they're coming with
Yeah.
some sort of issue. And this is what I knew I would run into is like, how do you incorporate this stuff in a group setting?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's getting hard is that like I have Trevor here, thank God, because he helps balance that out. But also, um, you have people where it's like, all right, we need to sit down, assess you, blah, 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 all that stuff. And it's very, very challenging. Where I've been moving my mindset lately is like, what are some things you can do that don't require any coaching, don't require any, relatively speaking, of course, to, like a glute max activation laying on your left side in 90-90. It's just like that takes too much time. So the question is like, how do you get that stuff? And I mean, people listening to this podcast probably want examples, which I would be happy to give. For example,
man, this is for us, not for anyone else.
Okay. So like, for example, you might be interested if someone wants to improve their hip flexion, right? Then I would probably like put that person in a bench lunge. So you would get their foot up on a bench and you just have them hold onto a PVC pipe in their other hand. You have them reach and you just have them go in and out of a lunge, a deep hip flexion lunge. And that's a really good way to go. In fact, I was talking to my buddy the other day who works at P3 in Santa Barbara, which is a sports performance facility. And he has the same issues. It's like, I can't do all this stuff that you do. It's too much. So I was like, all right, here's this. And I also gave him that rolling arm bar. It's like, that's super easy. People love that thing. It works really well. 90% of the time, it works every time. And what was the other one that I sent him? I'm blanking. I need to look at my texts. Anyway, the idea is like, how do you get people to do these things? And how do you make a change that matters that you can see immediately? That's gonna do that. Oh, it was the wall stride, like just the supine wall stride.
Oh yeah.
Activity. It's great. That exercise is awesome and it requires very little doing. Yeah. No, it's awesome. And so that's where I'm at now. It's like, how do you make this stuff easier without having to make it so intricate? Well, how do you say that word? Intricately cued. And that's kind of where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Because those sessions turn into 2 hours easy.
Yeah.
Longer.
Mm-hmm.
Like super, super quickly. Like I have one in-person client and she's great. And she probably won't listen to this, but I honestly like do it more for me because I get to like go out and get out of my room.
For sure.
And like go like do hands-on work and all that. And I get to use a little bit of like my manual therapy skills, which is like, that helps a ton. But with that said, like you should, that was a struggle I had, especially, I mean, obviously I don't know what I know now, but I always like keep this in mind, like working in a relatively like a mill clinic or like a PT clinic where, I mean, man, I'd be booked minimum 2 people on the hour. Sometimes you get 4 people on the hour.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was intense, but we had like, it'd be like a DPT, so doctor of physical therapy. I was under him as a PTA, and then underneath me was the physical therapy tech or the physical therapy aide. Mm-hmm. And so we all three, it was a well-oiled machine, man. So there was like 2 teams and we would just run through, like everyone knew the exercises. They knew sort of like some sequences that would help with this. Mm-hmm. I was the asshole that came in and was like, I know PRI, so we're going to change it all up. And like, they were doing a bunch of like gray stuff, like the 3D lunge,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, which, I mean, whatever, it gets people moving, gets people strong and moving differently enough, I guess. But even then, like going in there, like the guys were great. We all worked really well together, but trying to work and be like, I would spend 30 minutes with this one patient and I would do manual, I would do a breathing, I would do something to kind of like get them in a position. And then it's like, okay, I've already maybe written out what their program would look like. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to start you off here. The tech is going to take over. And so it was just like, boom. And I was kind of like jumping between like my next person who I would do manual and a breathing, something on them, and then kind of like in between. I loved it. Like, but that's also because it worked well. Like the days it didn't, and it's like me and just 4 people staring at me. It's like, oh, God, like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Like, you're just trying to survive. It's like clamshells for everybody. Like,
Right.
or, monster walks, do all this stuff. But that said, I think that's where what helped us out a lot is we had these 3 warm-up sequences that we went through. And it kind of covered all the bases, right? So it'd be like an inchworm, a lunge, cross connect, all this stuff. And then as people got out of pain, they would do like the second variation, which would add in maybe like the world's greatest stretch into the cross connect, and you kind of progress the movements. And then the third phase would be a plyometric variation of it all.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like
and
that.
So that, like, people would walk in and they would start with that. Like they would know it by the end, or it'd be like up on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of checking in, like, how's that feel? What's going on? Finish up some manual therapy, whatever drill I'm doing. So it just kind of kept everything moving.
Gosh.
But it was intense. Like I said, I loved it, but they were like 10-hour days, and I'd leave, get home, and I was out. Like, scarf some food down, finish a note, and I'm in bed, done.
What was your marker for knowing when that they could move on to the next phase of that?
Usually it would just be like perceived pain.
Yeah.
I'd be like, all right, where's your pain at? 0 to 10. Oh, well, I can do this lunge now. It's not hurting. It's like, cool. Like, and especially with it would also be different related to like age. So like, say someone was more geriatric, like they never got past phase 1, typically, right? Like they could hardly keep their balance with like going up and doing like a toe rock or something, like, or like heel to toe walking.
Yeah.
So like knowing that, I mean, that's where I think coming from being a trainer first and then going into like a physical therapy program has really kind of seen it all in a lot of ways. I mean, because we were also having people, I mean, we would have like D1 athletes coming there, but I'd also be holding a gait belt and keeping this geriatric patient who just had a stroke from falling on their face. And you're like,
yeah, no, I mean, it keeps it engaging for us for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, that said, like, I mean, you're kind of doing that in a way. But that's what I liked about the process. It's like they made a very systems approach. And that's where I also liked PRI, because it was like algorithm in a way, and you kind of knew what would build off of each other. But that said, it's like you can still get away with so much with just some of the wall reference stuff, like that wall reference hinge we got like for Progress Posture. Go to progressposture.com.
Yeah, plug.
We forgot about that. But like that one, having someone do a variation like that, it's all mid stance. Like it's all IR, which they probably suck at to some degree.
Yeah. No, it really is just like giving people that back. Just give people IR back. Things are going to be probably pretty good.
Right. Exactly, man. You give them control over that IR. Well, if you get them to mid stance, they get back both IR and ER. If they're in like a later phase of gait. So it's like, come back to mid stance, come hang out. Like, you're going to feel somewhat better. And we can also load you up and get you strong. That's why, like, who is it? Bill's video on disc herniations, talking about like McGill and all that.
I didn't see that. What was he talking about?
It's he just talks about like people with the disc herniation, like they're in toe off, if you would.
Yeah.
And then the most protective area for that disc is mid stance. So it's like bring them from their toe off position, which is a McKinsey extension,
Yep.
and then bring them back to mid stance, which would be like a side plank, stuff like that.
Yep.
And then make them feel safe and kind of start progressively loading from there.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's an interesting way of looking at it. I remember like reading something back in the day. It was like, we think that disc herniations come from flexion, but really, if you're, a lot of them are rotational in nature, in the sense of like, if you're twisted and then, you extend on top of that, then you will still shoot that fluid out the back. Right. It's just going to be that. That's why, like, if you extend really hard and you've seen someone pop something or whatever, it's like that rotational influence. So I think like people get really strong in flexion and they never have those issues. So like, what's the deal with that? Like why aren't those people bulging their discs? And it's just like the body's resilient. It's going to adapt to that. But right. I don't think that flexion necessarily is the issue for a lot of these disc herniations. It's just twists. It's just twists.
Well, and I think too, where are they going to find their internal rotation? Like, even though they're in a more flexed position, they could just be compensating.
Exactly.
So like, they tent, or I'll even have like some narrows who, it's like, they're so compressed back here, like a wide would be. And then they're just like all from this, like, like, what the hell is going on? Like, you look like a slinky. Like, it's like, what do you do with that? And I just treat them like a wide. It seems to have a decent effect. It's like, well, let's go put like, posterior mediastinum, just blow that sucker up back there. And then they kind of start to hinge over a little bit nicer and stuff goes away. But I don't know, man. Like Bill says, like, it all makes sense in theory until you like have to work with a human being. And that's like,
right.
It's like, oh my God, everything goes out the door.
On the other hand, though, like, I think there's a lot of this stuff you can systematize pretty well. Like a lot of this stuff, like working with you, if you see enough people, like, people need a lot of the same stuff, So like, there are people that get upset when you generalize or I generalize, or, we say that, most people are this way, but they really are. And I think that like the theory behind it is very sound, and it's valid and repeatable, and you can get very similar outcomes with a wide variety of populations. Therefore, it's like, this probably can be systematized and applied to broad general audiences to some extent. Obviously, there are individual differences. I would never say there aren't. But I think at the end of the day, like, like it's the same thing. Like if you try to give someone a right adductor pullback, they get worse on everything pretty much every single time. But even if you think they need that, they don't. It's amazing to me. Like maybe they need to, stretch out their right hip and get like a posterior capsule stretch. Very rarely does that ever help them, but if you go on the left, then you always kind of see a positive improvement. It's so surprising to me, even to this day, of like how much that is consistent across a lot of populations. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. There's systems in place. It makes it, well, you also have to have an anchor point. Like, even if you don't generalize, then it's like, okay, we're just going to sit out here in la la land and like, I don't know. And then that's where it's just like, oh, I'll just strengthen. Like that doesn't always work either.
No.
So it's like, start from a place of generalization. Like, I've seen that before. That's familiar to these other 50 people I've seen. Let me use the most conservative method I've ever seen in my life, which is breathing. Like, I've never had a breathing exercise hurt someone.
No, never. Me too.
So like, I've seen stretches hurt people, right? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that. Not to say stretching is bad, like none of it's bad. I'm sure there's someone out there who's had some kind of breathing issue. I don't know. But that said, I will say I did have a girl, I got her to a full exhalation and she had a panic attack.
Oh boy.
That was rough. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my license. I'm going to like, what did I just do to this poor girl?
Did you get her to calm down a bit?
Yeah, I got her to calm down, like put her in like one of the therapy rooms, just like, here's a paper bag. relax, all that. But I mean, it took her like an hour to calm down.
Ah,
We were on like a second round of just like a hook line breathing. And she, I mean, like I think she actually hit that point where she hit full exhale. And you know how it'll bring that sense of like panic.
mhm.
And I think that just like consumed her somehow.
Set off her nervous system.
Yeah, it was like too much in a way. Like from what was supposed to get her parasympathetic turned into like this sympath, like that whole like reflex took over.
A lot of people are carrying like traumatic events in their life in their body.
Definitely.
A lot of people are. So, I
She
wonder
was
if
an
it was like,
EMT. Like,
yeah,
so I don't
imagine
know.
like all that tension, Oh
Right.
boy.
EMT,
Yeah.
going to school to be a nurse, plus like had like 2 kids and worked on top of the school. Like, no
Was
wonder
she familiar with what the process of what you were going to work with her? Like, was she familiar with these concepts? Did she know that's what she was going to get?
this was back when I first started like using this stuff.
Okay.
And so like, and she was coming in for neck pain. And I used all my manual techniques. I did all the isometric, like pressure head, anything I could. I was like kind of at the end. And at the time, I wasn't really like, I had used the breathing stuff more on myself and like people that I trusted. And I was finally like, Hail Mary, like, let's try this. And it worked the day before, or like 2 days before she came in to like do it again. We started with that because it helped. And it just like took off, man. So
Interesting.
that's where,
So
go ahead.
I was wondering, like, so if in that situation, like, I wonder if how much, I guess what I'm experiencing is that when someone I see two main things that make people successful and make them feel better. And there's these consistent themes. The first one is more like objective in nature. It's like, can they move well to begin with? In the sense of like, do they know how to use their body? The best results I get with people tend to be like high level athletes, which is
Well, they can
weird
change like that.
because they know their bodies have something that other people don't. I think a lot of it is that they know how to feel and move and orient themselves into a position that's going to be successful. And their bodies are very resilient and adaptable too. I think that's big time part of it.
And I would add mentally, if you haven't felt like you're going to throw up or literally throw up from a practice or something, like you don't know pain. You don't know like
Right.
I think that's a huge reference point. So people like, I can give an athlete this stuff and say fully exhale and they feel that sensation or like slight panic, like they're not going, that's nothing.
Yeah.
They feel that when they hit, a 3,500 meter row or something and they're collapsed on the floor about to throw up. Like that's nothing,
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. I was working with the best examples, like this NFL wide receiver who's like very high level, and he did not have any idea of like, he knew what I was going to do, but he also didn't know what I was going to do. And he, for example,
sounds like you're sneaking up on him.
yeah. Like, so he didn't really know what to expect other than like, he saw like a YouTube video of mine. I was like, this is cool. Come over here. Yeah. So I ended up going there and I gave him one set of just like a couple breaths. He didn't even do it very well.
Yeah.
But his hip rotation changed more than I've seen in so many other people. Just bam, instant change. And it was like, dude, you didn't even do that well. And he just completely changed. It was wild. And he felt the difference too. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think that there are systems and there are certain things going on there with how well their bodies adapt. And I can't really pinpoint exactly what it is, but they're just more adaptable and they just know how to move into positions. The other thing I see is that people that have an expectation of what is going to happen, they also tend to, that's why I asked earlier, they tend to also see a lot of success. I think people struggle with those who get alienated by these types of activities because there's some biopsychosocial stuff going on to where it's like your expectation is not meeting reality And that puts you in a state potentially that is disadvantageous for these things to work. And I've noticed that. But I'm lucky because people know what they're going to get when they come in here. So we tend to have pretty successful outcomes. And I think that's a big part of it. And I wonder, just like, to what extent is really any modality benefiting off of this person truly believing it's going to work?
100%. Well, I mean, you look at any, I cannot think of the name of it, but it's basically like, it's the Physical Therapy Journal. They come out every year and they're basically saying like, these are the best approaches and modalities that will help a, shoulder pain, patellar tendonitis, whatever it is. And they literally will go through and like hit every single year, like the best stuff. And, talked about like electrical stimulation, ice, like basic stuff. And every time the best treatment option is always that, like, basically, if the person believes they will get better, they get better. Or
Amazing.
if they are treated with positive interactions by the therapist, they have a higher likelihood of feeling better.
Oh, it's so true.
It's like there's some study that we had to or that they like presented when I was in school, and it was talking about how like patients that were met at the door by therapists with a smile versus patients who weren't met at the door and they were like no smile the whole time. Like the people who were met with a smile, like same treatment, same everything, got better pain relief.
Interesting.
So that goes to show like your belief or positive interaction, like that's a cool part of a facility in a gym, right? Mm-hmm. Like a PT clinic, like if you have a good group of people in there and the patient or the client can feel that, I mean, it just makes wonder, like psychologically, like it's like that tribalism, like you're part of a tribe. It's like, this is my place. People accept me here. Like people are going to take care of me. I can give back. Like we need that more than ever, especially since COVID and all that.
Right. I've had people, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, man.
I've been amazed at this gym's only been open since June of last year. And I have people that are so bought into this place here that, like they're looking for houses and they're like, I have to be within driving distance of this place. And I'm just like, wow, like, okay, that's like, it's an honor to hear that. That means the world to me. But at the same time, just speaks to, if you have that group and you have that, and people, that's why I love the model. We have a semi-private model because they come in, they know what they're doing. We're floating from person to person. It keeps it very engaging. Right. And there's like this community that can be built and people start to get to know each other. They're doing different programs, but also a lot of the same stuff. It works really, really well. I love the semi-private model, and you can charge them less and you can get more because you're having like 8 people at once go. But if they're all paying you $150 a month, that adds up pretty quick. And then you have different sessions where different people can come in. So It works out that way. But anyway, people get really, really bought into it. And those people tend to, at least from what I've seen, those people tend to not really have a lot of issues, even if they come in with issues. Like, I'm still piecing it together in my own head with how that works and how much of it is important. Cause then you'll have like other people you're going to jive with someone within like 60 seconds of meeting them. And probably sometimes I'll have it probably like 10 seconds, honestly, man. So like I have some people come in sometimes, it's like, I don't fully connect with you just cause like that's every human ever is going to have that. Some people are going to click really well with other people, not so much. Right. So I've had those people come in and they feel a lot better. So there's clearly something like objectively happening here. So I see it like both sides. Like some people think it's going to work really well and they don't get as much success as like the other end of the spectrum. It's an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah. It's the whole biopsychosocial thing. Like, even though, I mean, that's why pain is multifactorial. Like to sit there and say you can fix pain is like we know the basic things that help it, which are range of motion, strength, and positive or like social interaction type, someone enjoying something.
Yes.
Like those are the big 3 things. And you're combining all 3 of them in a facility.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really what it is. And, even just movement. I mean, hell, man, no one moves. Like I have clients who if they're not getting better, I've kind of written into what I do. I'm like, okay, if you're not getting better with the typical interventions that I utilize, let's look at environment. And then I start, I already kind of know, right?
Mhm.
Like they're like, this guy's not getting a lot of sleep. This guy's not getting steps, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I start to really kind of probe that and be like, what's going on here? And then that it's like, let's set up the environment a little bit better for you. And then things get better.
Yep.
And so that's where I think this whole like a PEC pattern or like extension tone, I think there's a huge correlation, like especially for people who can't tone down. It's like, how much are you sleeping? How much are you moving on a daily basis? Are you stuck inside of a cube, like a room all day? Like all these things that are going to keep your nervous system like ramped up. Yeah. And that it's like, whatever, like, yeah, you can breathe and get a ZOA, but it's not working. Like, what do we do?
Right. No, that is true. Yeah. Yeah. The environment thing is, and again, like, I think that's not something I address it with some people, but my lens is a little bit more myopic in nature, I guess you can say. But absolutely, I totally agree with what you're saying. But a lot of it's like I'm starting to get down the rabbit hole of like the vision, the cranial stuff, like all that, and that stuff is for sure an influence. So for me, I guess I could do a better job of thinking about those things, and I will for some people, but probably not as much as I should. But for me, it's like if I clear everything from like pelvis, rib cage, foot, then it's going on up here.
Right.
And we're starting to develop a network here of people where I can like send them to get their eyes checked or the cranial stuff, and that's really, really helpful. A lot of people, we have one guy right now that literally like his right hip is so jacked up he can't even like lift it off of the ground into any degree of hip flexion. Like he's got zero. And so for him, like we gave him some stuff, it helps. It's having trouble sticking, and it's so biomechanical. It's like, do I tell that guy to, sleep more, like the environment stuff? Maybe that could be part of it, but there's literally like tissue damage preventing that. But at the same time, his eyes are doing some funky stuff. So we're sending him to get his eyes checked. And we have a theory that that's probably going to make a difference. He has some jaw stuff potentially going on, but it's interesting. Like, how do you know what it is? But those are easy check marks that you can make in someone's life for sure.
Yeah. I'd say mine is pelvis, rib cage, foot. If those aren't clicking before I go to the head, I'm like environment after that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Like, or even probably after pelvis and rib cage, I'm probably asking like, how much are you moving? Like, are you actually sleeping well? Like, picking up on different things, especially if their workouts are kind of, they're not going up in weight, or they're feeling tired, or things aren't really clicking as well. It's like, I don't know, man, something's off with this. Like, I think that I would rather check that off before I have to tell someone like, dude, your eyes are jacked up. Like,
yeah. No,
like,
it's you can't go there unless you have people that will actually like do that stuff. And even then, it's such like a taxing thing on someone to say that. It's like a last case resort for sure.
Exactly. Last thing I want to do is tell someone like they're going to like obsess like your maxilla and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Especially in those, because that's something too I've noticed is like what you tell people they remember, but they remember weird stuff of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you say, like they might take out of context, but they'll stick.
It's like makes them self-conscious a little bit.
Yeah, self-conscious, or they like obsess over something and it was like the completely wrong thing that you wanted them to think about. Like you tell someone like, hey, I want you to find your heels, and they're sitting there like clenching their butt like in a sway back trying to find their heels. It's like, no, I didn't want that. Like, the goal is just to sense them. And that's where so I don't know. I like when it comes to, I definitely am still playing around with what type of vocabulary to use when it comes to anything above the head. Like my assessments and all that, like I don't even talk about this.
Oh no. Yeah. I never go there with people.
Right.
But honestly, a lot of the I've realized this more and more. A lot of the drills that we do give people, they have that stuff built in.
Yeah.
So take, for example, the fact that most people have a head that's side bent to the left, and you put them on their right side in a 90-90 position, and you have them reach for the wall. You are then creating a side bent position of your cranium to the right, and you're opening up your left visual field.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's already in there. So you're already getting that influence.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's direct enough for their own individual issues. But I think that's why a lot of this stuff clears up multiple things at once, because it is thinking about Ron, who put these exercises together, is just like so incredibly smart that it's like he's a different species sometimes listening to that guy talk. He's just like on another level. And
even listening to your podcast with Bill, like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's all propulsion, like rolling's propulsion, walking's
right.
propulsion. Like it's all integrated into locomotion of some sort. Like your visual field, auditory, like balance, everything is meant for the movement to happen. That's why we have bodies, you know? So
Right.
even if, I mean, I'm not saying that Ron isn't smart or anything like that, but it's like probably happy accidents were happening when he was making this stuff. He's like, oh yeah, that happens to get this to go on. Like,
Definitely.
it just so happened, you know, like even just trialing stuff myself is like, oh, that makes sense. Why like this is all happening. And that's where it's just, you know, looking at correlations between different movements, like this is your jaw is the hip, like things like that. Like it makes it a little more simple to look at.
Yeah, you can make it incredibly simple. You can make it incredibly simple if you really wanted to.
Right.
But it's also, you know, so incredibly overwhelming at the same time. That's why I think this stuff is hard, but also I wonder like how big is it going to get? You know, like is it going to be a fad? But I don't think so, because it works. So I think fads are things like, you know, different ways to create a stretch on a muscle. You know, like I'm not going to name names, but there's definitely those systems out there.
Right.
But I think when you really get some serious results, I don't think it's going to go away, you know? So like my goal is to be someone that leads that charge. Like that's ultimately my purpose. Is I think this can really change a lot of people's lives, and I've seen it do it.
Right.
So I want to be the person that I don't want to say this word, influences that sphere.
Wow, man.
I just that was a long-winded way of saying I'd love to be a social media influencer. I should buy this course.
Buy this course. I've got a new PDF I'm gonna be selling on you should do a master class. There you go, man.
Oh my God.
No, I don't think it's a fad at all. Like when I think of it, because it is rooted, again, the art of it is being able to look at it from 3,000 feet up, but then also knowing when to like dive into certain aspects. Like what's the lowest hanging fruit for the individual? Is it the rib cage? Is it the pelvis? Is it this? Is that? Like, and then just knowing and like kind of like, okay, let's go through my little Rolodex of things that I need to do or that I can try and see if they get better.
Yeah.
With that said, it's so rooted in just like there's only one human blueprint, if you would. Like there's one human body, but there's how many systems out there trying to sell something. So that's why I always like clicked with these types of like this type of model. Like when it came to, I mean, you know, like I did functional patterns, which that made sense to me because they are talking about gait. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like we're built.
They talked about gait in that?
Oh yeah. It's all based on, it's basically taking anatomy trains and applying gait to it.
Oh, okay.
So it's like myofascial. That's where I think they miss versus like looking at it through more of like a pressure and neurological type standpoint.
For sure.
But I mean, they still are like having pressure influence. Like they were using these like chamber sequences, which is just taking a deep breath in a lot of ways, which is the same thing. Like, so, but anyways, like seeing that was like related to gait, it made sense to me. It's like, okay, humans are meant to do this, this, and this. But then I looked at PRI and I was like, that's deep. Like that's adding a breathing component to it. That's adding this whole like pressurization aspect. So you're just taking, it's the same thing as like mechanical engineering. Like you can't just say that this doesn't work, like this physics property isn't real, or that that's a fad, right?
Yeah.
Like we can build a machine based off of this like hydraulic system, and it's
But
there. Like
there's also, like I agree with you. There's also people though that it's so predictable. Like there's people out there that are starting to, for the last probably 6 to 8 months, pushing away from it and starting to make it uncool. And it's like, hang on. Yeah, people can get a little too deep into this. And I certainly have seen it happen. I've done it myself. But
you have to, like everyone does it. Like it's the learning
yeah,
process.
to make people feel bad about trying to help other people, even if it could be misguided in its own way, or maybe they're misinterpreting things and they go a little bit too deep, that to me is dangerous. And I think if someone's intentions are genuinely to have a skill set that improves someone's life, they're going to make mistakes with it because you have to get better with it. And people aren't dumb. They're going to circle back and be like, hey, I did this for a long time. Maybe I should, start training people a little bit more. Like you and I, both of us went through that.
Oh yeah.
So I think that it can become a slippery slope, and it can be really effective. When I say that, I mean these tactics, these methodologies. And I think that it's just like, again, why do we have to push it to the extreme? Why do we have to swing the pendulum so far? But of course it's going to happen. It's going to happen for the rest of time, because that's just how things work. And it's interesting seeing what else is popular right now. Like N1 education is becoming really popular right now. Like they're the hot thing, at least in our corner of the internet. But I also think it's starting to get outside of that right now.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different conversation. Like I think they have incredible content. I really like what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, when I think it complements a lot of this stuff really, really well.
Well, again, it's looking at it from a biomechanics perspective. It's looking at lines of pull. Like it's just stuff you can't argue with. Mm-hmm. Like it's like someone telling me it used to be like, well, respiration doesn't have that big of an effect on the body. And it's like, horseshit. Like prove it. Like prove to me that it doesn't. Why is it that I can improve someone's internal rotation, or I put them on a treadmill for 5 minutes and tell them to sprint, like their respiration changes like immensely, right? They lose that internal rotation or something, right? So it just, I think people are going that direction, like maybe a group, but they're saying that because one, it's context, the population that people are working with.
For sure.
Like I work with people in pain. I like to get them out of pain, but into training. Mm-hmm. So it's, if I probably told that to a lot of PRI people, they'd be like, no, like you shouldn't load that person. But, and then if I talk to just like a regular run of the mill PT and was like, yeah, I'm using these things to like help people and like trying to combine this, to be like, no, you're full of shit. Like, what are you doing? So that's where it's like trying to like connect the two dots, like, because there's merit in all of it. Like when I worked in the mill clinic, well, we just did a ton of strengthening stuff and it worked. Like, like that's what I always remember is like, at the end of the day, like if you get someone stronger, they're not going to be worse off. Even if they have a little bit of pain still, like they're still going to be stronger and be able to walk further, whatever they need to do.
I think, with the whole strengthening thing, like I think people are more resilient than, I think it's very easy to take a course from a lot of these different, not even like PRI, just like a lot of these things, and just think that everyone needs to be fixed. And it's like, no. I try to make it very clear that that's not the case in the content that I put out, at least. And people are more resilient. But the issue with just strengthening, like I've gotten to the point with only 2 people in this gym where it's like, they just don't get it. Like they don't understand what I'm trying to do. No matter how much I explain it, it just doesn't click. So it's just like, whatever, you're just going to lift now, despite being in pain and not listening to me. You're just going to lift.
Right.
And it makes a difference. They feel way better. But the issue is that sometimes that stuff doesn't stick long term in terms of like their day to day. Like for sure, if you get someone stronger, their pain levels are probably going to go down. But in terms of like little intricacies behind the pain, sometimes that doesn't completely stick. Definitely. In my experience. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what drove me down the rabbit hole further. It was like, I could get people stronger. I can make them feel better, but I couldn't hit that 95, 100%. I couldn't get an A with some of these people, right? Like even an A minus, and it pissed me off. Like, I was like, come on. Like, I want to like really like get this person there. Yeah. And that's where it's like, okay, maybe if I can take, I mean, again, you take this whole idea of like gait and you just apply it, and it's like, well, they're all the way over there. Let me just bring them back. Like, I find that if I can just bring you back in one of the steps of like the gait cycle, it like gets you from being jammed up, whatever you were jamming up, is the way I think about it. You have a little bit more space, and then like you hang out there for a week or two, and things kind of go away.
Yeah.
This, you know, the nervous system feels a little bit safer, whatever it is, you know. But if I can then just like, all right, well, now you're going to do all these exercises that are biased toward that phase of gait. So you're in toe off, let's bring you back to mid stance. Like, you know, let's just do a bunch of mid stance things.
It can be that easy.
Yeah. Well, and explaining it to people, I mean, that's half the battle. It's like,
that is half the battle.
Why are you doing this? And it's like, oh shit, I don't know half the time. Like, well, you're in mid stance. Like, let's bring you here. And, you know, because you're always on the forefoot, let's go to this part of the foot and do things that bias that.
I think the idea of relating everything to the gait cycle has frustrated some people. And for me, honestly, sometimes it's frustrating, but the way it's important to recognize that there is a distinction between literally talking about the gait cycle and making a reference to a joint position in the gait cycle. So like, I think people that aren't familiar with this stuff are hearing it and being like, I've seen like some posts on the internet, like, fuck your gait cycle. And it's just like, yeah, I know what you mean. I totally understand what you're saying, but you're not fully understanding what we're saying when we refer to it. We're not talking about like, yeah, your body's going to be so much better at feeling your heel when you strike the ground after this. And it's be like, wow, this exercise is now heel strike. And your body somehow magically knows that. It's just like, no, what this is a bias towards external rotation, yielding, delaying, whatever you want to call it. You're opening up those joint positions and your pelvis is mimicking that. And that feeds down into your foot, whatever, feeds up the chain. And then therefore, if you can be resilient through that, through strengthening, or you can open up that space on the ground, you'll have an easier time accessing that portion of human movement, because that is just how we work. You know what I mean? That's what we're trying to say. So it's not like, so it can be, and honestly, sometimes like a little part of me is every time I hear someone say like, this is a mid stance exercise, or when I say it, I'm just kind of like, oh, it's like, I don't want to say it like that because it sounds frankly a little like, I don't know what the word is, corny, but the idea.
I wish there was better language. I've been calling it center of mass, or like center of gravity management.
It's just an easier way to relate to why this is important. And it's like, again, our body doesn't know that this is mid stance, doesn't know it's toe off, but it does know what joint positions it needs to get into. And that's very trainable.
Right. Or, yeah, I completely agree. I don't even have anything to add to that.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. But no, I'm with you. Again, man, people are just, I think it's a combination of people being burnt out. Like, again, you get on a Zoom call and you want to throw up in your mouth. Like, I get that. Like, these past couple, it was a really weird time that we really can't compare it to in a lot of things, but there's a lot of things that became popular and everyone got into it. But also, I mean, I think of this too, like, because we're at the point, you've had how many years experience with this, would you say?
With what?
Just like what you do, like your model.
Oh, I first started learning it and I
mean, and I say like experience? I mean, like you found out about it and you started like to apply it. Like, were you good at it? No.
That was in 2016. So almost
Okay.
full 6 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like 6 years in. I would say probably 8 years or so. Probably not even that. I would say 2016 before, because I did functional patterns for a little bit and that sucked. And then I came back around to PRI.
Yeah.
And, or just, and I think that's the tough part too, is everyone wants to call it like, well, you do PRI. And it's like, honestly, I don't know if I want to call it PRI anymore. Like, I feel like I'm doing just biomechanics. I don't know what to call it. Like, I'm just training people, like trying to get them out of pain. I'm just looking at it through this perspective, I guess. But because of that, everyone wants to like say, well, that's stupid. Like they don't know what to call it.
The thing is, like, I don't even know if this directly relates to it, but I've never heard of someone ever, not once, take a PRI course and walking away from it and saying like that's horseshit. Like that's just not how it is. I don't agree with that at all. I've never heard of someone doing that. The people that look at it and say it's stupid are the ones that have never taken a course.
Right.
And actually, no, that's not true. I heard of one person taking one course and not liking it, but I don't know what their reason was for that. I never spoke to them. So it's just so incredibly rare because it just makes so much sense. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I think people don't like it because it doesn't make, or it can make sense, but it's application.
Yes, for sure.
Like I would say I got so much better in what I do from online stuff and just being able to like, I have an hour just to play with this one person and like try different techniques and see what works.
Oh, that was huge for me too. Huge.
Right. And so with that, and then it became like, okay, now I see this. Like, not am I just like looking at it in the book or listening to someone tell me? It's like, holy crap, like I can actually like, I feel like you can, it sounds stupid, but it's like the limitless thing. It's like I'm looking at it from a whole nother like angle. It's like I went from looking at the body at 2 dimensions to like 3 dimensions. And it's hard to do, but it took me like looking at a ton of people before I could even like piece that together.
Yeah.
So it's again, people wrestling with it. And I think you can do that with any single, whether it's, well, I'm gonna take that back, honestly. I don't think you should. I look at PRI, I look at what Bill's doing, and it's a big umbrella. It explains a lot of things within there, like why McKinsey can work, why McGill can work, why, this type of training style, like all that stuff. It helps explain why those techniques work. It doesn't necessarily say like, don't use them. Mm-hmm. Like, back to disc herniations, like there's a whole article on that I think Ron wrote about how using McKinsey is good for pain management. But then also keep in mind that there's a left AIC pattern there, and that you like as their disc bulge reduces, you're still trying to put them and manage that pattern. So again, it's taking all of it and looking and being like, what fits for this person? But anyone that's sitting there saying, well, like that's dumb, like either they are so in their whatever the heck they're doing, or they don't understand the applications because they don't see that population.
I think it's also hard to have done something one way your whole life and hear that things are better a different way. I think that's very challenging. I've seen a lot of PTs, not a lot, but I've had some people come at me and say like, this is wrong, this is bad, don't do this, like what are you doing, you're spreading like lies and stuff like that. Like you get to a certain like size, people are going to start popping shots. So right. And it's just like, no, like you just don't know. You just don't know. And I understand from a physical therapist perspective, like I respect my scope of practice 100%. I've had to learn to do that, but I've definitely like, I'm pretty good about that.
Yeah. So
I'm not doing anything wrong, but for a PT, it's like this person's trying to make people feel better and improve pain. It's like, I'm very careful of the words I use. If you pay close attention to the wording I use in my content, you'll notice that. But also, I think it's tough when you see, frankly, I have a baby face. Sometimes I look like a kid. It's just like this kid on the internet telling people that this is the way things are, and you went to physical therapy school and you are 15 years deep in your practice, like that, I would see how that would piss some people off. And I don't mean it to be that way. And it's unfortunate that's the case, but a lot of those people, honestly, it's tough to hear that. And I can't imagine doing this for 20 years and then the next best thing comes. And I'm just like, oh my God, I got to relearn all this other stuff. Like that would be very hard to do. That'd be very hard to do.
Well, look at someone like, who is it? Michael Mullins. Like, he's been around for a lot. Like, I look up to him a lot, but he's, again, you just combine it with this umbrella arching system.
Right.
Like you can, like you said, in one can combine into what you're doing. And it enhances what you're doing. And it's just another perspective. Because at the end of the day, it's just fucking movement. Like, that's all it is. Yeah. Like, there's no, I don't know, man. People are goofy. I don't get it.
I get it, man. I get it. But it is an interesting conversation for sure. I think it is. I think it's a worthwhile one to have. And
yeah, there's always going to be egos.
Yeah.
There's always going to be egos. And that's just what it comes down to. Like, people got to be in this
industry.
Yeah. And, I'm sure we're in a very small bubble.
Yeah.
Especially like on social media, like it's an echo chamber, but it
really is. I've stopped consuming content lately. Actually, I don't look at people's stuff. My mental health is better because of it. My day-to-day life is better because of it. And there's frankly nothing there that's new or interesting to me. Some of N1 stuff is pretty interesting to me. Like Michael Mullins stuff is interesting to me. Mm-hmm. There's like a select handful of other people, but for the most part, I just don't consume content, and it's fantastic.
Well, really nice. Look at what I'm posting. I'm literally posting memes and 15-second reels of one exercise.
Right.
Like, that's the state of social media right now.
It is.
Like, long duration. Like, I love making YouTube videos just because I enjoy it. I think it's cathartic. I feel like I'm making like this nice lecture and package it up. If I get views, cool, whatever. It's really more just for like that person who I know is like on the internet and they are desperate. Like, if I can help that person, I've done my job.
YouTube's great for the long form,
for sure. But when it comes to like TikTok and all that, like, if it doesn't hit within 3 seconds, it's like just really, really hitting on everyone's like dopamine circuits right now.
Oh, dude, TikTok is a mess.
It's bad, man. I really don't. Yeah, it's nasty, but
it's you can get sucked in so easily for like an hour on TikTok. I've never seen anything like it. I've never experienced that. Just like an hour goes by and you're just like, what just happened?
Yeah, it's nasty, man. Well, like I said, you just post memes and you just join it. Like, you might as well just join the garbage party and have a good time. But
honestly, yeah. No, I get it. People like that stuff. They really do.
Yeah, it works out. But hey, Conor, man, I really appreciate you coming on here. I know you got to get running here. We're going a bit over on time, but good talk. It was good to catch up with you. Felt like we weren't even recording that whole time, but
yeah, that's nice. Those are good.
I know.
Podcasts.
That's just what I want my podcast to be, just hanging out, talking shit. So
yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, why don't you tell everybody where to find you? I'm sure everyone knows where to find you, but
just look up my name, Conor. That's the only hard part because, it's spelled a little bit more Irish. Harris, Harris. I'll pop up. Got a YouTube with more in-depth stuff like we just mentioned. Instagram, Twitter. Twitter's all right. I don't like that much, but Instagram, YouTube are my top two. Trying to get on TikTok a little bit more. That's going okay. So that's where I'm at.
Sounds good, man. Well, hey, I appreciate it, and we'll definitely have to catch up again soon.
Sounds good, Kyle. Thank you.